What's going on, Soul Nation? Ginger Prime here, and today we're talking about some industry news. There's been a recent interview with Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, talking about how Amazon and Google are really their main competitors going forward. And that's a really powerful statement, and so I figured it would be a good time to discuss it. Now, all opinions are on the table here. Nothing is really wrong. I'd love to know each and every one of your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know what you're thinking about this, because it's really interesting. Because the question is, what happened to Sony and Nintendo? And if anybody's looking at the scoreboard today, clearly Sony and Nintendo are doing just fine. So what's Phil talking about? Now, this article is coming from The Verge. They're referencing another interview in which it kind of breaks down not just Amazon and Google, but also Apple, Sony, and Nintendo, and talking about the cloud competition. Now, if you're like me, you've got great internet and cloud gaming works. Just yesterday on Work to Game, I talked about how GeForce Now is really a great bridge into cloud gaming. I've been using that, I've been using Stadia, I've been using Shadow PC, and cloud gaming just works for me. However, I know that's not the case around the world, and I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you otherwise, because there are some major hurdles, especially when it comes to data caps and just the infrastructure in this country alone. But it looks like big tech is betting big on this gaming industry and trying to grow it from the traditional mindset of 100 to 150 million consoles into 7 billion gamers worldwide. At last count, the industry puts gaming at a 2 to 2.5 billion gamers worldwide. And obviously the big conversation around this is going to be mobile. Ugh. I'm not a mobile gamer, I apologize. I know that there are some really good games that people like on their mobile phones, but maybe that's just not for me. Anyway, this article is coming from The Verge. I'm going to include a link in the description below. I encourage you to go check out the article, give them some love. They put some work into this, and it's going to hopefully be a really interesting discussion. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. So it begins. Microsoft's head of gaming, Xbox Phil Spencer, has revealed that the company sees Amazon and Google as its main competition for the future. Speaking in an interview with the newly launched technology publication Protocol, Spencer dismisses Sony and Nintendo's ability to create a cloud infrastructure that will challenge Microsoft, Google, or Amazon. And if you guys aren't aware, Microsoft and Sony have actually teamed up on the cloud infrastructure with Microsoft's Azure platform. And just full disclosure, I'm an Azure developer. I've been working in that environment for a long time. I like cloud computing because it opens me up to a whole new world of possibilities. That's an aside. Let's dive back into the article. When you talk about Nintendo and Sony, we have a ton of respect for them, but we see Amazon and Google as the main competitors going forward, says Spencer. That's not to disrespect Nintendo and Sony, but these traditional gaming companies are somewhat out of position. I guess they could try to recreate Azure, but we've invested tens of billions of dollars into cloud over the years. Microsoft has been realigning its gaming efforts for a future far beyond the Xbox console. The software giant's effort now involves reaching billions of players around the world with cloud gaming. Google has already launched its Stadia service, which, go check out my video from yesterday. They need to do a lot of work. They launched is, I'm going to put that in quotes. Anyway, then Microsoft is trailing its own xCloud streaming service, and it's set to launch fully later this year. Now, Spencer has previously discussed the threat of Amazon and Google as competitors, but not in such clear terms. He was obviously previously stated that Microsoft's gaming business isn't about how many consoles you sell. He acknowledges that further by noting that Microsoft isn't interested in getting into a future format war with Nintendo and Sony. And I don't want to be in a fight over a format wars with those guys while Amazon and Google are focusing on how to get gaming up to 7 billion people around the world, says Spencer with the Protocol interview, and ultimately that is the goal. That means Microsoft is getting ready for future console wars that will take place in data centers, and it's ready to partner with competitors that it can use Azure. Microsoft partnered with Sony, like I said, just last year, and the pair appears to be readying a host of Sony services on Azure for the future. Now, cloud gaming still seems like it's in the distant future, especially as Sony and Microsoft prepare to launch the traditional PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X consoles later this year. Both generation consoles will go head-to-head throughout the important holiday season, and Nintendo is still seeing positive growth with its Switch sales thanks to the new Switch Lite. Guys, at the end of the day, I'm a gamer. Like, I love playing games. I have an Xbox. My PlayStation died, so I'm looking forward to the PlayStation 5, hands down. It's going to be a really great year. But I can say this in all honesty. When we get rid of the two main hurdles for cloud gaming, data caps and obviously the infrastructure, it is so fast. It is so much faster for me to get into a game now with GeForce Now, with Stadia, with the one game that I play, which would be Destiny 2 on that case, that I'm going to tell you, hands down, Series X, PlayStation 5, they have to compete on that. Heck, I would say Nintendo by far is probably my preferred method to play games for how easy it is for me to launch a game and just play, for whether it's for 15 minutes or for a few hours. And that, as I've come into being an adult with a job and have a family, 15 minutes can make all the difference. If I have to like wait for an update or just to log into the game, that kind of ends up detailing what I want to do in that period of time. Obviously, sometimes during the week I've got lots of times. Sometimes in the week I just want to log in for a quick match or something like that. So I end up defaulting, kind of like lightning, to the path of least resistance. What gets me to what I want the quickest? The question or concern that I have is really, what does this mean for traditional gaming? When you look at the PlayStation 4, coming up on, actually, I think last I heard it's going to hit 110 million units sold. That's amazing. Well done, PlayStation. Xbox is somewhere in the 50s, I hear. Nintendo Switch just passed that. It's doing well. I don't see that system actually slowing down at all. We just picked up a Switch Lite here for the family. And honestly, I think it's probably the best handheld I've ever played. And it makes me kind of want a Switch Pro that would be just a dedicated console that I could easily bounce back and forth between, depending on what I want. But 110 million or 150 million, which is what the PlayStation 2 sold, versus 7 billion. Gamers, and I don't know where you fall in this regards, but I know that over the last couple of years, it has felt like there's been horrible monetization and lackluster games and games launching that aren't ready. I obviously talk about Anthem here on this channel, and thus it's going to come up that like, hey, Stadia, like you compare Stadia and Anthem, these are two systems in a way that need more time, that need more effort. Are we going to see more of that in this quest for 7 billion gamers? Are yours and my voice going to be diminished by the volume of just gamers who really aren't that invested? And I'm not knocking that. Don't get me wrong. Like, I welcome that investment. The amount of money that this brings into the gaming industry could benefit us, and it could not. This isn't a future, this isn't a video of doom or gloom. This isn't also a future of saying that everything's gonna be all right. It's gonna be, this is my message to you, for you watching this. Like, as gamers, we have to fight for our rights. We have to continue to positively give our feedback, to engage in the markets that make sense. And I would say engage in markets that are gamer first. Because when we engage in those markets, when we like provide money into that, that's what the data shows, and that's where the investment goes. So if the market is about really good games, and again, like he says he doesn't want to diminish, Sony and Nintendo, and I can clearly see that there are going to be people saying, well, yeah, when you're in last place, like, what else are you going to do? Like, it is seeming dismissive, but what you'll probably end up seeing, and this is a complete speculation on my part, but just working somewhat within the industry, I'll talk more about that later, and also as a software engineer in this regards, I easily see Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, and hell, even Sony, running at Nintendo. I don't see Nintendo making their own cloud infrastructure. And the way I would point to that is see how long it took them to get into mobile. When you look at the numbers, like Apple by far not making any games is actually one of the strongest platforms out there in terms of gaming and in terms of revenue. Not in terms of quality, not in terms of where you might want to play. Maybe you're different than me, and that's perfectly fine if you love mobile. But they're a force, and what you see with that is Nintendo finally got on board with mobile, which I thought was a good move because of their IP. If that's where, like, my kids aren't gaming on phones, but most of the kids apparently are. That's where a big business is, and that's why Apple's Arcade has been such a strong move for Apple. But they take 30%, 30 cents to the dollar. They are racking in over $10 million a year, and they're not even publishing any games. Valve is the same way. As much as we want Half-Life 3, I think they're fine just kind of collecting the money and kind of putting out something that's safe. They can go and experiment and have fun, but rather than put out a game and us be disappointed and then that kind of tarnish kind of the viewpoint, aka if you look at Blizzard over the last year, they can kind of play it safe and they can just keep racking in the money. I think that Steam's in an incredibly strong position with this future, and I think it shows. I think Nintendo is actually in an incredibly strong position in this future, because while I don't see them building out their own cloud infrastructure, I can see them teaming up with Google or Amazon or Microsoft to provide maybe their own ecosystem, but within I guarantee you, whether they publish a game on Microsoft's system or not, or on PC or not, I think that's a far off future, if at all. But they could have, hey, here's our Nintendo Cloud powered by Azure, and Microsoft would just love to have that business outside of gaming, just to have that business model in and of itself. It's going to be a weird future. We're going to keep you up to date on all of this, because the thing I can say is don't be afraid of it, but also, just pay attention, see what's going on. And if you want, check out my impressions for GeForce Now, Stadia. I would recommend holding off on Stadia for sure. GeForce Now is a great feature because it's a free thing. You can go test it out, see if it's something for you. Plus, it works with all your PC games. It's saving me hundreds of gigs in hard drive space already, and I've just been working on lists for games to go into that. xCloud's on its way. And the thing here is that when we talk about Amazon, it's speculative. This article and the interview behind it is literally speculative that Amazon's going to launch its own cloud streaming service. So let's buckle up, guys. It's going to be a crazy decade, and I think that there's going to be kind of two markets, in this regard. The traditional market, the one that I've grown up with PlayStation, with Nintendo, with Xbox, with that console, and there's going to be a new emerging market. And where I look at this as a parent, I wonder what is the console my kids are going to remember. And I don't have an answer for that yet. I'm sure it's going to be Nintendo, because that's what we play a lot together. And that at the end of the day, it's going to be about the games. And that's why I think Microsoft, Google, and Amazon are going to be spending a lot of money. And hopefully, out of all of this, we get some freaking amazing games. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. I'd love to know your feedback, your thoughts about this video. This is a kind of a little bit different video. A lot of speculation here, a lot of things about the industry. Anything and all, sound off in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Love to have that conversation with you. But for Ginger Prime, my name is Brian. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day. I guess I'll see you in the cloud. I don't know. Talk to you soon. Take care.